Chapter 1. Reprogram your mindset. Life doesn't change overnight, but the way you see life can. And that single shift, quiet, invisible, yet deeply powerful, has the ability to alter the entire trajectory of your existence. Your mindset is not just a collection of thoughts. It is the command center of your reality. It determines how you interpret failure, how you respond to pressure, how you perceive opportunities, and ultimately, how far you go in life. Imagine for a moment that everything you've ever believed about your limits was simply a story, one you didn't consciously choose, but one that was written for you through experiences, environment, and repetition. What if that story is not final? What if you have the power to rewrite it? Most people go through life operating on unconscious patterns, beliefs they never questioned, fears they never challenged, and doubts they accepted as truth. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Success is not for people like me. These are not facts. These are programs. And like any program, they can be rewritten. But here's the truth. Reprogramming your mindset is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about taking control. It's about becoming aware of the thoughts that control you and choosing new ones that empower you. Because the moment you shift from being a passive thinker to an intentional one, everything begins to change. Your subconscious mind is incredibly powerful. It does not question what you feed it. It simply accepts, stores, and executes. For years, it has been absorbing beliefs from your surroundings, your upbringing, your failures, and even the opinions of others. If you grew up hearing that success is rare, struggle is permanent, or money is difficult to earn, those ideas didn't just stay as words. They became internal codes, guiding your decisions, limiting your risks, and shaping your reality. And that is why so many people feel stuck. Not because they lack potential, but because their internal programming is working against them. But here's the turning point. Once you become aware of this programming, you gain the power to change it. Awareness is the first breakthrough. Start asking yourself the questions most people avoid. What beliefs are holding me back? Where did they come from? Are they actually true? Or have I just repeated them so often that they feel true? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary, because every powerful transformation begins with brutal honesty. Once you identify these limiting beliefs, the next step is to challenge them. And this is where most people stop. They recognize their doubts, but they don't replace them. And without replacement, nothing changes. You must consciously install new beliefs, stronger beliefs. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you train your mind to say, I can learn this. Instead of, I always fail, you say, every attempt makes me better. It may feel unnatural at first. It may even feel fake, but repetition creates reality. The more you repeat a thought, the more your brain begins to accept it as truth. Visualization becomes your secret weapon here. Close your eyes and see yourself succeeding, not vaguely, but vividly. See the environment. Feel the emotions, hear the sounds. Your brain does not fully distinguish between imagination and reality. When you repeatedly visualize success, you are training your mind to recognize it as familiar instead of foreign. And what feels familiar feels possible. But mindset transformation is not just about what you think. It's also about what you focus on. And this is where gratitude becomes powerful beyond measure. When you train your mind to notice what's working instead of what's missing, you begin to shift your emotional state. Gratitude is not just a feel-good habit. It is a neurological reset. It rewires your brain to find positivity, opportunity, and strength even in difficult moments. And over time, this changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of breaking under pressure, you begin to adapt. Your environment plays a silent but powerful role in this transformation. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, they all shape your mindset. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, doubt, and limitation, your mind will reflect that. But when you intentionally choose growth books that expand your thinking, voices that inspire you, environments that challenge you, you begin to elevate your mental standard. Growth becomes normal. Expansion becomes natural. Understand this clearly. Reprogramming your mindset is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. There will be days when old thoughts come back, days when doubt feels louder than belief, days when you question your progress, and that's okay. Because every time you choose to redirect your thoughts, every time you refuse to fall back into old patterns, you are strengthening a new version of yourself, a stronger version, a more focused version, a version that refuses to stay limited. This is how transformation happens, not in one big moment, but in thousands of small decisions. The decision to think differently, the decision to believe differently. And over time, these decisions compound into a completely new identity. You are not stuck, you are not limited, you are simply operating on an old program. And now you have the power to change it. Because the moment you master your mindset, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your life. Chapter 2, Develop an unshakable belief in yourself. There comes a moment in every person's life when talent is not enough, when opportunity is not enough, when even hard work feels uncertain. In that moment, only one thing decides whether you rise or fall: your belief in yourself. Self-belief is not just confidence. It is not loud, it is not always visible, and it does not depend on applause. It is a quiet force within you that says, no matter what happens, I will figure this out. And the truth is, without this belief, even the most gifted individuals hesitate, doubt, and shrink in the face of challenges. But with it, even an ordinary person can achieve extraordinary things. The world has a way of making you question yourself. It measures your worth through results, compares your journey with others, and constantly reminds you of what you lack. Over time, if you're not careful, you begin to internalize these external voices. You start to believe that you are only as valuable as your achievements, only as capable as your last success, only as worthy as someone else's validation. And slowly, without even realizing it, your confidence begins to depend on things you cannot control. But true self-belief does not come from the outside. It is built from within, deliberately, consistently, and intentionally. You must understand this clearly. Self-belief is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And, like any structure, it requires a strong foundation. That foundation begins with recognizing your intrinsic worth. You are not valuable because of what you achieve. You are valuable because you exist. Your potential is not defined by your past failures, your current struggles, or the opinions of others. It is defined by your willingness to grow. And the moment you truly internalize this, something shifts. You stop chasing validation and you start building belief. But belief is not built through words alone. It is built through action. Small, consistent actions that prove to yourself that you can trust who you are becoming. You don't need to take massive leaps in the beginning. In fact, it's the smallest commitments that matter the most. When you set a goal, even something as simple as completing a task, showing up on time, or staying consistent for a few minutes a day, and you follow through, you send a powerful message to your mind. I am reliable. I do what I say. And every time you repeat this, your belief strengthens. Not because someone told you to believe in yourself, but because you've earned that belief. And then there are failures, the moments most people fear, avoid, and try to escape. But what if failure is not the enemy? What if it is the training ground for belief? Every setback carries a lesson. Every mistake carries insight. And every time you rise after falling, you reinforce your strength. People with unshakable belief are not those who never fail. They are the ones who refuse to let failure define them. Instead of saying, "This proves I'm not good enough," they say, "This is showing me where I need to grow." That shift, small but powerful, changes everything. Your inner voice plays a critical role in this journey. The way you speak to yourself either builds you or breaks you. Most people are their own harshest critics. They repeat thoughts like, "I can't do this," "I'm not ready," or "I'll never be good enough." And over time, these thoughts become beliefs. But here's the truth. Your mind believes what you tell it repeatedly. So if you constantly feed it doubt, it will produce hesitation. But if you feed it strength, it will produce confidence. This is where conscious self-talk becomes your tool for transformation. You begin to interrupt negative thoughts and replace them with empowering ones. Not empty positivity, but grounded, growth-based belief. Instead of saying, "I'm not capable," I am learning to become capable. Instead, "I'm not ready," you say, "I am preparing myself every day." These statements may feel unnatural at first, but repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates belief. Visualization strengthens this process even further. When you see yourself succeeding in your mind, clearly, vividly, emotionally, you reduce the fear of the unknown. Your brain begins to recognize success as something achievable, not distant. You start walking into situations with a sense of readiness, not hesitation. Because in your mind, you've already been there, but your environment also matters more than you think. The people around you can either strengthen your belief or slowly weaken it. When you surround yourself with individuals who doubt you, criticize you, or project their own fears onto you, it becomes harder to trust yourself. But when you're around people who challenge you, support you, and see your potential even when you don't, something powerful happens. You begin to rise to that standard. You begin to see yourself differently. At the same time, developing self-belief requires accepting one simple truth. You are not perfect, and you don't need to be. Perfection is not the goal. Growth is. The pursuit of perfection often leads to fear, hesitation, and self-criticism. But when you shift your focus to progress, you allow yourself to move forward without the pressure of being flawless. You start appreciating effort. You start recognizing improvement. And most importantly, you start giving yourself permission to try. Self-compassion becomes essential here, because there will be days when you doubt yourself again. Days when things don't go as planned. Days when your confidence feels shaken. And in those moments, how you treat yourself matters. If you respond with harsh criticism, you weaken your belief. But if you respond with understanding, patience, and encouragement, you rebuild it stronger than before. Over time, these practices, consistent action, reframing failure, positive self-talk, visualization, supportive environments, and self-compassion, come together to form something powerful, an unshakable belief in yourself, a belief that does not depend on outcomes, a belief that does not collapse under pressure, a belief that remains steady even when everything around you feels uncertain. And when you reach that point, something incredible happens. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop doubting every decision. You stop holding yourself back, and you start moving with clarity, with courage, and with conviction. Because the truth is, the most powerful advantage you can ever have in life is not talent, not resources, not luck. It is the belief that no matter what happens, you will find a way. Chapter 3. Reframe negativity into opportunities for growth. Negativity is not your enemy, but the way you understand it can either trap you or transform you. Every person, no matter how strong, how successful, or how disciplined, faces moments of doubt, failure, and emotional weight. Life will test you. It will push you into situations you didn't plan for, outcomes you didn't expect, and challenges you didn't feel ready to face. And in those moments, your mind will react. It will question. It will fear. It will imagine worst-case scenarios. This is natural. But what separates those who break from those who rise is not the absence of negativity. It is the ability to reframe it. Most people see negativity as something to avoid, suppress, or escape. They try to ignore it, distract themselves from it, or blame it on circumstances. But the truth is, negativity carries information. It reveals your fears, your insecurities, your limiting beliefs. It shows you where you feel weak, where you feel uncertain, and where you need to grow. And when you begin to see negativity not as a barrier, but as feedback, everything starts to shift. Because instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Your perspective is powerful. The same situation can either break your confidence or build your character, depending on how you interpret it. Losing an opportunity can feel like rejection, or it can become redirection. Failure can feel like proof that you're not good enough, or it can become evidence that you are trying, learning, and evolving. The event itself does not define your future. Your interpretation of it does. The first step to reframing negativity is awareness. You must become conscious of your thoughts in difficult moments. Notice how quickly your mind jumps to conclusions. Notice how it exaggerates problems, assumes the worst, and creates stories that may not even be true. Thoughts like, "I'll never succeed," "This always happens to me," or "I'm not capable," feel real in the moment, but they are often emotional reactions, not logical truths. And the moment you recognize this, you create space. Space to pause, space to question, space to choose a different thought. Once you become aware, the next step is to challenge those thoughts. Ask yourself, is this absolutely true? What evidence do I have? Am I looking at the full picture or just one moment? Because one failure does not define your ability. One setback does not erase your progress. One negative experience does not determine your future. When you challenge your thoughts, you weaken their control over you. And when you replace them with more balanced, growth-focused perspectives, you begin to regain your power. But reframing negativity is not just about thinking differently. It's about seeing differently. It's about training your mind to look for opportunity within difficulty. Every challenge carries a lesson, even if it's not immediately visible. Sometimes the lesson is patience. Sometimes it's resilience. Sometimes it's awareness. And sometimes it's the realization that you are stronger than you thought. The most successful people in the world are not those who avoided hardship. They are the ones who learned how to extract value from it. Think about this. Some of the greatest transformations in life are born from the hardest moments. Pain forces reflection. Failure forces growth. Uncertainty forces adaptation. And when you stop resisting these moments and start learning from them, they begin to work in your favor. What once felt like a setback becomes preparation. What once felt like an ending becomes a new beginning. Gratitude plays a powerful role in this process. It may feel difficult to be grateful in challenging times, but that is exactly when it matters most. Gratitude shifts your focus. It reminds you that even in difficulty, there is something that remains strong. Your ability to learn, your ability to grow, your ability to continue. It grounds you. It prevents negativity from consuming your entire perspective, because no matter how difficult a situation may be, it is never the whole story. Developing a growth mindset strengthens your ability to reframe negativity even further. When you believe that your abilities can improve through effort and learning, you stop seeing challenges as threats. Instead, you see them as opportunities to expand. You become more willing to try, to fail, and to try again. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What will I learn?" And that shift alone can unlock a level of resilience most people never reach. Your environment also influences how you process negativity. If you are surrounded by people who constantly complain, blame, and focus on problems, it becomes easier to fall into the same pattern. But when you surround yourself with individuals who focus on solutions, growth, and possibility, your mindset begins to align with that energy. You start thinking differently. You start rising instead of reacting. Another powerful tool in reframing negativity is reflection. When you take the time to step back and analyze your experiences, you gain clarity. Writing your thoughts, understanding your emotions, and identifying lessons helps you turn confusion into insight. Over time, this practice trains your mind to automatically look for meaning within difficulty. Instead of being overwhelmed, you become observant. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond intentionally. But this transformation does not happen instantly. There will be moments when negativity feels overwhelming, moments when doubt feels louder than logic, moments when it feels easier to give up than to reframe. And in those moments, you must remind yourself, this is part of the process. Growth is not comfortable. Change is not easy. But every time you choose to see a challenge differently, you are strengthening your mental resilience. Because ultimately, negativity is not what defines you. Your response to it does. When you master the ability to reframe your thoughts, you no longer see obstacles as roadblocks. You see them as stepping stones. You no longer fear failure. You use it. You no longer feel defeated by challenges. You are shaped by them. And that is where true strength is built. Not in the absence of struggle, but in the ability to rise every single time. Chapter 4. Master the art of self-discipline. Self-discipline is the bridge between who you are today and who you have the potential to become. It is not loud, it is not flashy, and it rarely gets recognition in the moment. But behind every successful person, behind every transformation, there is one common force quietly at work: discipline. Not motivation, not talent, not luck. Discipline. Because motivation fades, emotions fluctuate, and circumstances change. But discipline stays. It shows up when you don't feel like it. It keeps you moving when progress feels slow, and it carries you forward when everything inside you wants to stop. Most people misunderstand discipline. They see it as restriction, as pressure, as something that takes away freedom. But in reality, discipline is what creates freedom. Because when you learn to control your actions, you stop being controlled by your moods, your impulses, and your distractions. You stop depending on how you feel and start acting based on what truly matters. And that shift from emotional reaction to intentional action is where real power begins. It all starts with clarity. You cannot be disciplined about everything. If you try to do too much, you end up doing nothing. That's why you must decide what truly matters to you. What kind of life are you trying to build? What goals are worth your time, your energy, your effort? Because discipline without direction leads to frustration, but discipline with purpose creates momentum. When your actions are aligned with something meaningful, it becomes easier to stay consistent, even when it's difficult. One of the biggest enemies of discipline is procrastination, that silent habit of delay, where you tell yourself, I'll do it later, until later becomes never. But procrastination is not laziness. It is often fear, fear of failure, fear of discomfort, fear of not doing something perfectly. And the way you overcome it is not by waiting for confidence, but by taking action anyway. Start small. Start simple. Don't focus on completing everything. Focus on beginning. Because once you start, something shifts. Resistance weakens, momentum builds, and what felt heavy begins to feel manageable. This is where consistency becomes your greatest advantage. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to show up again and again and again. Small actions repeated daily create powerful results over time. A few minutes of effort each day may seem insignificant, but over weeks, months, and years, it becomes transformation. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about repetition. Your environment plays a silent but powerful role in this process. If your surroundings are filled with distractions, temptations, and noise, staying disciplined becomes harder. But when you intentionally design your environment to support your goals, everything becomes easier. Remove what distracts you. Add what supports you. Create a space where focus becomes natural. Because discipline is not just about willpower, it's about structure. Habits are where discipline becomes automatic. When you turn actions into habits, you remove the need for constant decision-making. You don't have to think about whether you should do it. You just do it. But habits are not built overnight. They are built through repetition and patience. Start with something small, something you can commit to daily without fail. And once that becomes natural, you build on it, step by step, layer by layer, until discipline becomes part of who you are. There will be moments when you feel like stopping, moments when your energy is low, your motivation is gone, and your progress feels invisible. And in those moments, discipline is tested the most, because anyone can work when they feel inspired, but only the disciplined continue when they don't. This is where you prove to yourself who you are becoming, not through words, but through action. Accountability strengthens discipline even further. When you track your progress, when you measure your consistency, when you become aware of your actions, you create responsibility. You stop ignoring your habits. You start owning them, whether it's through a journal, a tracker, or a person who holds you accountable. This awareness keeps you aligned with your goals. But discipline is not about being perfect. There will be days when you fall short, days when you skip, delay, or lose focus. And that's okay. What matters is not that you never fail, but that you don't stay there. You don't let one mistake become a pattern. You don't let one bad day become an excuse to quit. You reset, you refocus, and you continue. Self-compassion is important in this journey because if you become too harsh on yourself, discipline turns into pressure, and pressure leads to burnout. But when you combine discipline with understanding, you create balance. You push yourself, but you also support yourself. You strive for growth, but you allow room for imperfection. And over time, something powerful happens. Discipline stops feeling forced. It stops feeling like effort. It becomes part of your identity. You become the person who shows up, the person who follows through, the person who does what needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. Because at the end of the day, success is not built on what you do occasionally. It is built on what you do consistently. And when you master the art of self-discipline, you don't just achieve your goals, you become unstoppable. Chapter 5, Build Mental Resilience. Life will test you. Not once, not twice, but again and again in ways you don't expect and at times you don't feel ready for. There will be moments when everything feels aligned, and then suddenly everything falls apart. Plans fail, people change, situations turn against you, and in those moments, your strength is not measured by how high you rise, but by how well you recover. This is where mental resilience is built. Not in comfort, not in ease, but in adversity. Mental resilience is not about avoiding pain or pretending that everything is fine. It is about facing reality as it is, without breaking under its weight. It is the ability to stand firm when circumstances shake you, to adapt when things don't go your way, and to keep moving forward even when progress feels invisible. It is the quiet strength that says, "This is hard, but I will not stop." And the truth is, resilience is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you develop through experience, through awareness, and through choice. Every challenge you face carries two possibilities. It can weaken you, or it can strengthen you. And the difference lies in how you respond. When something goes wrong, your mind immediately looks for meaning. It tries to explain what happened, often in a way that protects your ego, but limits your growth. Why does this always happen to me? Maybe I'm not capable. Maybe I should just give up. These thoughts feel natural, but they slowly erode your strength. Because the more you repeat them, the more they define your reality. But resilient individuals think differently. They don't deny difficulty, but they refuse to be defined by it. Instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "What now?" Instead of focusing on what they've lost, they focus on what they can still control. Because in every situation, no matter how difficult, there is always something within your control. Your actions, your mindset, your response. And when you shift your focus to these, you regain power. Adaptability is a core part of resilience. Life is unpredictable, and the ability to adjust is what keeps you moving forward. Rigid thinking leads to frustration, but flexible thinking creates solutions. When one path closes, resilience allows you to find another. When one plan fails, resilience helps you create a new one. It is not about having everything figured out. It is about trusting your ability to figure things out along the way. Emotional strength also plays a crucial role in resilience. Difficult situations bring difficult emotions: fear, anger, sadness, frustration. And many people either suppress these emotions or let them control their actions. But true resilience lies in understanding your emotions without being controlled by them. It is about feeling deeply, but acting wisely. You acknowledge what you feel, but you don't let it dictate your decisions, because emotions are temporary, but the choices you make during those emotions can have lasting impact. One of the most powerful ways to build resilience is through perspective. When you zoom out and look at your life as a whole, you begin to realize that no single moment defines your journey. This setback, this failure, this challenge, it is just one part of a much larger story. And when you see it that way, it becomes easier to endure. It becomes easier to stay patient. It becomes easier to keep going. Your past experiences are also a source of strength, if you choose to see them that way. Think about the challenges you've already faced, the moments you thought you wouldn't get through, but you did, the times you felt weak but still kept moving. Those moments are proof of your resilience. They are evidence that you are stronger than you think. And when you remind yourself of this, you begin to trust your ability to handle whatever comes next. Support systems matter more than most people realize. Resilience does not mean doing everything alone. It means knowing when to seek support and allowing others to help you when needed, whether it's a friend, a mentor, or someone who simply listens. Having people who understand you can strengthen your ability to cope and recover. Because sometimes strength is not about holding everything in, but about letting it out. At the same time, solitude has its own power. When you spend time with yourself, reflecting, understanding, processing, you build inner stability. You learn to rely on yourself emotionally. You develop clarity, and over time, you create a sense of calm that is not easily shaken by external chaos. Resilience is also built through action. Every time you face a difficulty, instead of avoiding it, every time you choose to continue instead of quitting, every time you stand back up after falling, you strengthen your resilience. It is not built in big, dramatic moments. It is built in small, quiet decisions to keep going, to keep trying, to keep believing. There will be moments when you feel tired, when the weight feels too heavy, when continuing feels harder than stopping. And in those moments, resilience is not about pushing endlessly. It is about pausing without quitting. It is about resting, recovering, and then rising again. Because resilience is not about never breaking, it is about never staying broken. Over time, as you face challenges and choose growth over defeat, something changes within you. You become stronger, not just physically or mentally, but emotionally. You stop fearing difficulties. You stop avoiding challenges. Instead, you begin to face them with a sense of calm confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, you will handle it. Because resilience is not just about surviving tough times. It is about becoming the kind of person who cannot be defeated by them. Chapter 6, Take Full Responsibility for Your Life. There comes a point in life where everything changes, not because your circumstances suddenly improve, not because opportunities magically appear, but because you make one powerful decision. You stop blaming and you start taking responsibility. This is the moment you shift from being a victim of your life to becoming the creator of it. And understand this clearly. Until you take full responsibility for where you are, you will never have full control over where you're going. It's easy to blame circumstances, to blame people, to blame the past, to blame lack of resources, lack of support, lack of opportunities. And sometimes those reasons are valid. Life is not always fair. Not everyone starts at the same place. Not everyone gets the same chances. But responsibility is not about fairness. It is about power. Because the moment you blame something outside of you, you give away your control. You say, my life depends on things I cannot change. And when you believe that, you stay stuck. But when you take responsibility, everything shifts. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do about it? You stop focusing on what you can't control and start focusing on what you can. Your choices, your actions, your mindset, your effort. And in that shift, you regain your power. Because no matter how difficult your situation may be, there is always something you can control. And that is where your strength lies. Taking responsibility means being honest with yourself, completely honest. It means looking at your life without excuses, without denial, without sugarcoating reality. It means acknowledging your mistakes, your habits, your patterns, and your decisions. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Growth begins the moment you stop avoiding the truth. But responsibility is not about self-blame. It is not about being harsh on yourself or carrying guilt for everything that has gone wrong. It is about ownership. It is about saying, this is my life. These are my choices, and I have the ability to change my direction. It is a mindset of empowerment, not punishment. Because when you take ownership, you also take control of your future. Your daily actions reflect your level of responsibility. The way you manage your time, your habits, your commitments. These are all choices, and every choice either moves you forward or holds you back. Small decisions may seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they shape your entire life. The decision to show up or not, to try or not, to stay disciplined or give in. These choices define your path. Excuses are one of the biggest obstacles to responsibility. They sound convincing, they feel comfortable, they protect your ego, but they also keep you stuck. Every time you make an excuse, you delay your growth. You avoid discomfort, but you also avoid progress. And the more you rely on excuses, the harder it becomes to change because you start believing them. But when you eliminate excuses, you create clarity. You start seeing things as they are. You stop hiding behind reasons and start focusing on solutions. Instead of saying, I don't have time, you ask, how can I manage my time better? Instead of, I'm not ready, you ask, what do I need to do to prepare? This shift from excuse to solution is where real progress begins. Accountability strengthens responsibility even further. When you hold yourself accountable, you create standards. You expect more from yourself. You follow through on your commitments. And when you fall short, you don't ignore it. You learn from it. You adjust. You improve. Because responsibility is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. Taking responsibility also means letting go of the past. You cannot control what has already happened. You cannot change your previous mistakes, missed opportunities, or failures. But you can control what you do next. Holding on to the past keeps you stuck. It drains your energy and distracts you from the present. But when you accept it, learn from it, and move forward, you free yourself. Your environment, your circumstances, your experiences, they all influence you, but they do not define you. What defines you is how you respond. Two people can go through the same situation and come out completely different because one chooses responsibility and the other chooses blame. One grows and the other stays stuck, and that difference comes down to mindset. There will be moments when taking responsibility feels uncomfortable, when it's easier to blame, to complain, or to avoid. And in those moments, you must remind yourself, comfort does not lead to growth. Responsibility does. Every time you choose ownership over excuses, you become stronger. You become more in control of your life. Over time, this mindset transforms you. You stop waiting for things to happen and start making things happen. You stop depending on external validation and start trusting your own decisions. You stop feeling powerless and start realizing your potential. Because the truth is simple but powerful. Your life changes the moment you take responsibility for it. Not because everything becomes easier, but because you become stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling anything that comes your way. And once you reach that Chapter 7, control your emotions before they control you. Your emotions are powerful. They can elevate you to your highest potential or pull you into your lowest moments. In a single instant, they can give you courage or take it away. They can push you to act or cause you to freeze. And the truth is, emotions are not the problem. They are natural. They are human. The real challenge is not feeling emotions. It is letting them control your decisions. Most people live their lives reacting emotionally. When something good happens, they feel motivated. When something goes wrong, they lose focus. When they feel confident, they take action. When they feel doubt, they hold back. Their actions are driven by how they feel in the moment. And because emotions constantly change, their consistency breaks, their discipline fades, their progress slows down. This is why emotional control is one of the most important skills you can ever develop. Controlling your emotions does not mean suppressing them. It does not mean ignoring what you feel or pretending that everything is okay. It means understanding your emotions without being controlled by them. It means creating a gap between what you feel and how you respond, because in that gap lies your power. When something triggers you, anger, frustration, fear, your first reaction is usually automatic. It happens fast, almost instantly, but that reaction is not always the best response. If you act immediately, you act impulsively, and impulsive decisions often lead to regret. But when you pause, even for a few seconds, you give yourself the ability to choose. You shift from reacting to responding. Awareness is the first step. You must learn to recognize your emotional patterns. What triggers you? What situations make you lose control? What thoughts amplify your emotions? The more you understand these patterns, the more control you gain over them, because you can't manage what you don't recognize. Your thoughts and emotions are deeply connected. A single thought can trigger a strong emotional reaction, and once that emotion takes over, it influences your behavior. If you think, "This is unfair," you feel anger. If you think, "I'm not capable," you feel fear. But if you change the thought, you change the emotion. This is where mental discipline becomes emotional control. Breathing is one of the simplest yet most powerful tools you have. When emotions rise, your breathing changes. It becomes faster, shallow, uncontrolled, and this intensifies the emotional state. But when you slow down your breathing, you send a signal to your body that you are safe. You calm your nervous system. You reduce the intensity of the emotion, and in that calm state, you think more clearly. Another powerful skill is detachment. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting every situation affect your inner state. Not everything deserves your emotional energy. Not every opinion matters. Not every situation requires a reaction. When you learn to detach from unnecessary triggers, you protect your peace. Strong individuals are not those who never feel emotions. They are those who remain steady despite them. They feel anger, but they don't let it control their actions. They feel fear, but they don't let it stop them. They feel doubt, but they continue anyway. This is emotional mastery, not the absence of emotion, but control over it. Your environment also influences your emotional state. The people you interact with, the content you consume, the situations you place yourself in, they all impact how you feel. If you constantly expose yourself to negativity, drama, and stress, your emotions will reflect that. But when you create an environment of calm, focus, and growth, your emotional state becomes more stable. Journaling can help you process emotions instead of reacting to them. When you write down what you feel, you create distance from it. You understand it better. You see patterns. And over time, this practice helps you respond more wisely instead of reacting impulsively. There will be moments when emotions feel overwhelming, moments when it feels impossible to stay calm. And in those moments, remember, control does not mean perfection. It means effort. It means trying again. It means choosing a better response, even if it's not perfect. Because every time you control your emotions, you strengthen your mind. Every time you choose patience over anger, clarity over confusion, action over fear, you become stronger. And over time, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled by situations. You stop being shaken by opinions. You stop reacting to everything around you. Instead, you become calm, focused, and in control. Because when you master your emotions, you master your life. Chapter 8. Focus on what you can control. There is a hidden truth that most people overlook, and it quietly drains their energy, their peace, and their progress every single day. They focus on things they cannot control. They worry about outcomes, other people's opinions, unexpected situations, past mistakes, and uncertain futures. And in doing so, they lose control over the only thing that truly matters, their own actions. Because the more you focus on what you can't control, the more powerless you feel. But the moment you shift your focus to what you can control, everything changes. Life is unpredictable. No matter how well you plan, things will not always go your way. People will act in ways you don't expect. Situations will change without warning. Opportunities may come and go. And if your peace depends on controlling all of this, you will always feel unstable, because control over external events is limited, but control over yourself is always available. The strongest individuals understand this deeply. They do not waste time trying to control everything around them. Instead, they focus on mastering what is within them: their thoughts, their actions, their discipline, their reactions, because these are the only things that truly shape their life. And when you focus on these consistently, you create stability no matter what is happening outside. Your thoughts are within your control. You may not control what thoughts appear in your mind, but you control which ones you entertain. You control which ones you repeat. And over time, the thoughts you focus on become your reality. If you constantly focus on doubt, fear, and negativity, your actions will reflect that. But if you choose to focus on growth, possibility, and solutions, your life begins to move in that direction. Your actions are within your control. You may not always feel motivated, but you can still act. You may not always feel confident, but you can still try. You may not always feel ready, but you can still begin. Action does not require perfect conditions. It requires decision. And every action you take, no matter how small, moves you forward. Your reactions are within your control. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. Two people can face the same situation and experience completely different outcomes because of their response. One reacts with frustration, blame, and negativity. The other responds with patience, clarity, and focus. And that difference creates a completely different future. Letting go of what you cannot control is not weakness. It is strength. It requires awareness. It requires discipline. It requires trust. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you free your mind. You reduce stress. You create clarity. And with that clarity, you make better decisions. Worry is often a sign that your focus is misplaced. When you worry, you are thinking about things that have not happened yet. Things you may not be able to influence at all. And while thinking about them, you ignore what you can actually do right now. Worry does not solve problems. Action does. And the moment you shift from worrying to acting, you regain control. One powerful way to practice this is by asking yourself a simple question in every situation. What is within my control right now? Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. And once you identify that, you focus only on that. If you can take action, you take it. If you cannot, you let it go. This simple habit can transform the way you think. Your energy is limited. Every day, you only have a certain amount of focus, effort, and attention. And if you waste that energy on things you cannot control, you have less energy for the things that actually matter. But when you direct your energy toward your actions, your growth, your discipline, your progress becomes unstoppable. This mindset also protects your peace. You stop overthinking every situation. You stop being affected by every opinion. You stop reacting to things that don't deserve your attention. Instead, you become calm, focused, stable, because your state of mind is no longer dependent on external chaos. There will still be challenges. There will still be uncertainty. But your approach will be different. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you will feel grounded. Instead of feeling helpless, you will feel capable because you understand where your power lies. And over time, this practice becomes a habit. You automatically shift your focus. You automatically let go of what you can't control. You automatically take action where you can. And that consistency builds confidence because you know that no matter what happens, you will always find a way to move forward. Because at the end of the day, you don't need control over everything. You just need control over yourself. And when you master that, nothing can truly disturb your progress. Chapter 9, Commit to Consistency over Perfection. Perfection is an illusion, but consistency is power. Most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect version of themselves before they take action. They want everything to be aligned. No fear, no doubt, no mistakes. But that moment never comes. And while they wait, time passes. Opportunities fade. Progress stops. Because perfection doesn't create results. Action does. And not just action once, but action repeated consistently over time. The truth is, you don't need to be perfect to succeed. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to get everything right the first time. What you need is consistency, the willingness to show up every day, even when it's difficult, even when you don't feel motivated, even when your progress feels slow. Because it's not what you do once that defines you, it's what you do repeatedly. Perfection creates pressure. It makes you overthink every step, fear every mistake, and delay every decision. It tells you if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. And that mindset leads to hesitation. You start things but don't finish them. You plan endlessly but don't act. You doubt yourself before you even begin. And slowly, your confidence begins to fade. But consistency removes that pressure. It allows you to focus on progress instead of perfection. It allows you to make mistakes, learn from them, and improve. It allows you to move forward without needing everything to be flawless, because growth is not a straight line. It is messy. It is imperfect. It is filled with trial and error. And the sooner you accept that, the faster you grow. Every small action matters, even the ones that feel insignificant. Reading a few pages, practicing for a few minutes, taking one step forward. These actions may not seem like much in the moment, but over time, they compound, they build momentum, they create results. And before you realize it, those small efforts turn into something powerful. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you show up, every time you follow through, every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your self-belief. You prove to yourself that you are reliable, that you are capable, that you can keep going. And that trust becomes your foundation. There will be days when you don't feel like showing up, days when your energy is low, your motivation is gone, and your mind is filled with excuses. And in those moments, consistency is tested, because anyone can work when they feel inspired, but only the committed continue when they don't. This is where real growth happens, not in comfort, but in discipline. Missing one day is not failure. Losing consistency completely is. The key is to never let one missed step turn into a pattern. If you fall behind, you return. If you lose focus, you reset. If you make a mistake, you learn, because consistency is not about being perfect every day. It's about not giving up. Your environment can either support your consistency or destroy it. If you surround yourself with distractions, negativity, and people who lack discipline, it becomes harder to stay consistent. But when you create an environment that supports your goals, structure, routine, focus, it becomes easier to show up daily. Tracking your progress can also strengthen consistency. When you see your efforts, when you measure your actions, when you recognize how far you've come, it motivates you to continue. It reminds you that your work is not wasted, that every step is building something. Patience is essential because results don't always come immediately. And this is where most people quit. They don't see progress fast enough. But consistency is not about instant results. It is about long-term transformation. It is about trusting the process, even when the outcome is not yet visible. Over time, consistency becomes part of your identity. You stop relying on motivation. You stop waiting for the right mood. You become the person who shows up, no matter what. And that identity is powerful, because once consistency becomes who you are, success becomes inevitable. Because at the end of the day, it's not the perfect effort that changes your life. It's the consistent one. And when you commit to showing up again and again, no matter how slow the progress may seem, you become unstoppable. Chapter 10. Become the person who never gives up. At the end of everything, after the mindset shifts, the discipline, the resilience, the lessons, the growth, one trait stands above all others. The trait that determines whether you succeed or fall short, whether you rise or remain stuck, whether you achieve your goals or walk away from them. And that trait is simple, yet incredibly powerful. You refuse to give up. Success is not reserved for the smartest, the most talented, or the most fortunate. It belongs to those who keep going, those who continue when it's hard, those who persist when results are slow, those who refuse to quit, even when everything inside them is telling them to stop. Because the truth is, most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they give up too soon. There will be moments in your journey when quitting feels like the easiest option, when the effort feels too heavy, when progress feels invisible, when doubt becomes louder than belief. And in those moments, you will face a choice: walk away or push forward. And that choice, repeated over time, defines your entire life. Giving up is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It shows up as procrastination, as distraction, as telling yourself, "I'll try again later." It appears as a slow loss of commitment, a gradual fading of effort. And before you realize it, you've stopped, not because you couldn't continue, but because you didn't. But those who succeed think differently. They understand that difficulty is part of the process. that challenges are not signs to stop, but signals to grow. They don't expect the journey to be easy. They expect it to test them. And because they expect it, they are prepared for it. Persistence is not about always moving fast. Sometimes it's about moving slowly. Sometimes it's about taking one small step when everything feels overwhelming. Sometimes it's about pausing, resting, and then continuing. Because not giving up does not mean you never feel tired. It means you never decide to quit. Your why becomes your anchor in these moments. The deeper your reason, the stronger your commitment. When your goals are connected to something meaningful, your growth, your future, your purpose, you find the strength to continue even when motivation disappears. Because you are not just chasing results, you are building a life. Every setback will test your commitment. Every failure will question your belief. Every delay will challenge your patience. And in those moments, you must remind yourself, this is not the end. This is part of the journey. Because every successful person you admire has faced these same moments. The difference is they kept going. Belief and persistence work together. When you believe in yourself, you keep going. And when you keep going, your belief grows stronger. It becomes a cycle, one that pushes you forward, step by step, even when the path is unclear. You will not always see immediate results. There will be times when it feels like your efforts are not paying off, when it feels like you're moving without progress. But growth is not always visible. Sometimes it's happening beneath the surface, building strength, building skill, building resilience. And one day, that invisible growth becomes visible success. Surrounding yourself with the right mindset is important here. When you are constantly exposed to doubt, negativity, and limitation, it becomes easier to give up. But when you fill your environment with growth, discipline, and belief, you strengthen your ability to continue. And most importantly, you must learn to trust the process, not blindly, but patiently. You must understand that meaningful success takes time, that real growth cannot be rushed, that every step, every effort, every struggle is contributing to something bigger, even if you can't see it yet. There will be moments when you question everything, when you feel lost, when you wonder if it's worth it. And in those moments, you don't need all the answers. You don't need perfect clarity. You just need to take the next step, because that is what separates those who succeed. They take one more step. When it's hard, they continue. When it's uncertain, they try. When it feels impossible, they persist. And over time, those small acts of persistence create something powerful. They create results. They create growth. They create a version of you that refuses to break. Because in the end, success is not about never falling. It's about never staying down. And when you become the person who never gives up, there is nothing in this world that can stop you.